Hello, Silas here, and I'm back with I Know Great People, which is this series that my friend Stephen and I have been embarking on, where we just talk about different things. And thank you all for participating, both listening and the people who are participating in this. And my intention with this is to share information about what people do versus what we think that they do. And my hope with this is also to bridge the gap between perception and knowledge, because I believe the more that we know about each other and ourselves, the greater the things we can accomplish. So we just do this by asking different questions in this questionnaire. We send the questionnaire out, then people come on, and then we talk about different topics. And today we have Mark here. And can you tell us your name, the occupation and pastime that's going to be the subject of what we're talking about today, and how you and Stephen know each other?
All right. My name is Mark Kibler. I have a small farm, and me and Steven, we met on Facebook, and we've been Facebook friends for a while, and connected online through a mutual friend of ours.
Yeah, it's our first time speaking directly, though, which is good. Finally, it's taking a little while, but happy to finally have this conversation.
Yeah. With this one, the key thing we're doing this because there's a lot of these conversations where people talk about different things, about different topics, but we want to try with this one where the people we have here is good people that we know before having this conversation. And then we're going to go in and talk about different things. Like with Stephen, who was the first one on this series, I've known him for multiple years, met him in New York. And then I knew that he was in the food service industry, but actually getting into detail and trying to break down on these particular questions, especially one of the most important questions that we'll get to further down, is things that you get to know more about the things about the person, different things that I thought like, oh, I didn't know Stephen approached this in this way or got to this in this way. And I think it's a positive thing to do that, just to get to know more about the people that you know and the things that they know and the way they got to know those things that they do know. And maybe you can also find out ways to do this. And I think we'll have more and more people participating in this. So today, one of the things that I know about Stephen was that he's human foie gras in a sense. I call him that when we're talking about the different dish on dish series. He's really a big fan of that. So with today, I think Mark has something to do with Stephen being human foie gras. So can you tell us a bit about part of the main topic that we'll be talking about today?
Right. Well, I'd done some reading because personally, everything I've read says that gavage doesn't actually hurt the ducks or the geese, but it wasn't something that I was wanting to do. But I was reading in Spain, there's actually a farm where it's like mostly olives and nuts and stuff, but they do some like free range gavage or free range foie gras, where they just eat enough fatty foods and get that nice fatty liver just from what they're eating. So I've doing an experiment right now. We're trying it. I got some ducks and geese and Muscovy ducks all penned up, and it's a pretty good sized pen. And I'm giving them as much corn and black oil sunflower seeds. It's a real oily, fatty seed, as much as they can eat themselves, and then just keeping fresh water on them all the time. And then probably next month, we're going to butcher a few of them, and we'll see how that turns out. See if I can actually get that foie gras taste and texture and everything without having to use the funnels. So that's what I'm trying right now.
Excellent.
Interesting. Yeah.
Now, with this, like, one thing I was wondering, why do they use ducks and geese? Like, do you know in particular, there's other birds out there. Why is it these birds in specific? Why don't they also put turkeys into this? Or why don't they also use chickens? Like, what's specific about those two birds that you think lends itself?
They come from migratory bird species. So those migratory birds need to put on a lot of fat
Okay.
To make their flights. So as they domesticate them, they can no longer fly and migrate, but they still have that genetic capability to store all that fat. Whereas like a chicken or a turkey, they don't migrate, so they kind of it's not the same.
Yeah, because I was gonna add. I think we talked about breaking down duck in a previous discussion, and with chicken, you'll notice there's a thin layer of skin, whereas duck there's that thick layer of fat. And the thing is, that's that's a duck in its natural form, even without being fed. So like if you feed it a lot, it's gonna get really thick. But like he says, because of the nature of the animal, it can put on that weight, whereas a chicken's not designed to put on that much body fat. Like I mean, I'm sure you could plump up a chicken more, but it's only gonna get so big.
But now, if it's just pumping animals up, why can't we do it with like pigs or use pig livers or some other kind of like hooved animal or something?
I'm not sure if it's just something to do with the way the fat is stored in the body.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we do butcher pigs out here. We raise pigs as well, and they get pretty fatty. And we render the lard, and we eat the livers, but it doesn't get that color and texture and size that you do with like the foie gras.
Okay.
I was going to ask you, have you ever raised moulard ducks at all? Because the moulard, if you don't know, Silas, it's a cross between a Muscovy and a Peking duck. That's typically the preferred foie gras because it's like, I guess, that crossbreeding, it produces a certain fat content that's just right. Yeah. Have you raised any of those or?
Not yet. I do have Muscovies and Pekins both, but right now they kind of stick to their own kind.
Yeah,
yeah, birds of a feather.
Yeah. So I'm looking. I'm gonna get a pin, and I'm gonna big pin, and I'm gonna pin them together, and I'm gonna actually try to do that in the spring and try to breed some of those in the spring.
Cool.
I kind of thought I would naturally get some just having both kinds together, but they kind of they keep to their own. So I think to do that, I'm gonna have to pin them up so that way that is what they have to breed instead of just letting them.
I also, I don't know if you saw this, but I posted the other day, I had a Magret, the duck breast. That's actually the duck breast from the foie gras duck. So that's commonly served too, because again, the fat content of the duck itself is higher. So that's, it's sold as a Magret because the idea is that it's like, this is a foie gras duck. So it's going to have more fat. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we also talk about the whole like you are what you consume type of thing with the food series, the different conversation series that we've had with Stephen. And now is the corn and the black seed oil, you said corn, was it black seed oil you said in specific? What was else you feed them?
Black oil sunflower seeds.
Okay, black oil sunflower seeds. So okay, so that is that just like a form of sunflower, like a strain of sunflowers?
Yeah, it's a strain of sunflower. It's got a little higher oil content. And like when you see sunflower oil in the store, it's usually from those type of sunflower seeds. But I'm giving them the whole seed.
And what's the typical sunflower that you see in the packaging, like when people just buy the sunflowers and eat those?
It's like gray striped sunflower seeds. They're a different variety.
So with this and with a lot of the kind of the flavorings, like, there's this thing that Stephen, of course, has gone a lot more into the details of that, and you can also see the difference with like grass-fed beef versus the different ways that they're fed, where you can actually get the flavoring, there's aspects of the actual food that you eat that actually gets in there, and that's also why it goes further with the foie gras, the way the animal is actually treated. That's why I think this experiment kind of appealed to you, right? Like, what were some of the reasons that made you think, okay, let me actually try this out? Had you been a fan of foie gras before, or is this something that was kind of just new to you?
Actually, I've seen it and I've heard how good it is. I've never actually tried it. And that's why actually, when Stephen does come out, if I ever figure this out, I want him to try it and compare it to restaurant foie gras, because I don't have a baseline to compare it to. But I do really like duck liver and goose liver, like fried up, but they haven't been the real fatty foie gras type. They've just been regular liver.
Yeah.
But they are really good, even not fat like that.
I think it's interesting too, the size differential of the regular liver versus the foie, because the regular liver's like that, and then the foie is like, you know.
So it's I mean, it's really something I thought it'd be cool to try, and if I can figure it out and start doing it regularly, maybe I could try to sell some here and there to people.
So because I'm thinking some of these things are not eaten that much. Of course, a beef liver is the most common one.
Yeah.
Here, I prefer kidney over liver, and my favorite kidneys to eat are goat kidneys. But that's something it was relatively hard to find them in the United States of America when I was living there. Or if you go to like a certain butcher shops who get things directly from the farmers, you can have them special order for you if they don't have them. But that's at least in the cities. I mean, it might be different when you're living out in more of the rural areas. But here in Kenya, it's a typical thing to find all these things. Like chicken liver is a common thing here. Like the chicken, they don't eat ducks and geese definitely as much, or turkeys as much as they do in America. But the chicken, the bird, all the different parts. This feet are normally fried, like it's made sauces out of. You get the collagen out of it and use it in different ways. So getting these different familiarities with different parts of the animal, I think, is a good thing to do, and something that I think is increasing slowly but surely, even in America, which is a positive thing that I'm seeing.
Mm.
Okay, so can you tell us a bit about where you are? Because we talked about a bit before, so we know where you are. But where is your farm, and how long have you been farming before you started this particular experiment with the foie gras?
So I'm in north central Ohio. But I mean, I've only had this place for like 3 years now.
Yeah.
Before that, I was living in Washington State, and we were on less than an acre, and we were just doing ducks and a few goats, and rabbits was our big thing. We raised a lot of rabbits, but and then I changed jobs and moved here, and I got a lot bigger place now. I had less than an acre there, and I've got 38 and a half here.
Wow.
So we got a lot more livestock and a lot more room and a lot more options on things we do. This is the first year I've tried the foie gras. This is really an experiment, and next month I'm going to butcher the first one and see how it looks, see what it looks like, and decide whether I'm going to butcher the rest now or try to keep pushing corn and sunflower seeds on them, or we'll do a couple, see how it goes.
Sure.
Hoping we get good results.
Yeah.
And in Washington, you said you ended your job there. So in Washington, with less than half an acre, I'm assuming that farming wasn't the primary thing that you're doing, but now farming is the primary thing that you're doing?
No, I still work a full-time job.
Okay.
We're
so with 38 acres, go ahead.
We're still building up. I'm building up my cows. I've got a few. I'm breeding. I'm keeping some more heifers, and we've got a few goats. We're breeding up our herd of goats and our pigs as well. And we're building up. I've sold a little bit of beef here and there, but not enough to pay for everything, keep the lights on. So I still work a full-time job at night, and then I come home and take care of this place during the day, and then sleep a little afternoon, evening time.
I'm guessing you got to find some time in there.
Yeah.
That's. I think this actually might be somewhat interesting to people, because there's a lot of people now moving outside of cities. As you probably know, there's been a lot of, for the last 10, 20 years, a lot of people moving into cities. But I think during this current pestilence of unnamed origin, you can't really talk about, there's been a lot of people moving out of cities. And I think this is just from my estimation. They might be more of an expansion of people now deciding to get into more awareness of just where things come from, taking part in these things, and having that kind of lifestyle. Like you said, you've been able to live that lifestyle where you are working a more typical, straightforward job, but still having your hands involved in actual farming, just the basic subsistence things that we all need to actually survive. So when you came to take this new place, or was it somewhere that was already used as a farm, or was it just land and then you kind of reclaiming these things, or what was the position with that?
There was no livestock or anything with it, but it was they had some fenced in pastures. We've added on to a few of them, and it was previously a farm. There was a couple buildings. So the house was actually built Amish, and then the person I bought it from added the electricity and the plumbing, and after he bought it, but it was built for Amish. So,
is it actually in the Amish country area?
Yeah, I've got Amish neighbors.
Okay, cool. I have one of my friends who will be on this series eventually, Cassandra. She lives in Hopedale, Ohio. I don't know if you're familiar with Hopedale.
No.
Okay, but she occasionally goes to Amish country just for a few visits and things like that. But she was mentioning how I think it's Ohio, Pennsylvania. Where else has a decent amount of Amish population in the States?
Ohio and Pennsylvania both do.
Yeah, I tend to think of those. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. And do they? Indiana? Okay. And do they have to? And I'm guessing with farms, you have to also go through there's certain places that are regulated to, and you have to have certain licenses to have a farm, or if you just have the land, you can do what you want with it.
You don't really have to have a license to have the farm, but depending on especially with meat, what you're selling, if you're selling it, you have to go to a certain USDA certified butcher, go through them, and increase your costs and everything. But if you're just doing it for your own use, we've got our own little shop set up, and there's another guy that we cut meat with sometimes, and we'll just kill a few pigs and a cow or two, and we'll cut it up for ourselves.
Yeah.
And we do the same thing when we hunt deer. We'll butcher it ourselves and just take care of it all.
Yeah, there's a bit of that here with the people. I don't really know too many people in the farm. Some people in my age group are already into it, but I'm not too connected to the people here. But my mom, she knows a lot of people, and they have actually. I think she actually went to visit one of her farms right now with this rainy season coming up, and a lot of friends will stop by. Will come by each other. Someone will have some strawberries, they'll come give some strawberries. Someone will have some chickens. When the chickens come, they'll give a chicken to each friend. It's some kind of communal type of thing there. It's good. They still will sell some to supermarkets and groceries and markets and things like that. But when they do it within the friends, there is some kind of camaraderie there that I think is a rather positive thing. So not like potluck, but it's some kind of thing where you just kind of share the goods of the land out to each other. Yeah. I think we can kind of go to the second question. I think here that we have is 2 to 3 things that people would like about what you do. And I think this is more just the farming, or if people have that idea of, hey, right now I'm doing this, I would like to enter the farming, I would like to enter certain things, or farming in general. And also you're trying something new in your farm with this foie gras thing. So someone who might already be a farmer, what were some of the things they would like about maybe trying something that they're not used to doing in their farm and they're trying something new?
I mean, being in touch with the land and the livestock, and I think that's important. And I think more people should understand and be connected to where their food comes from. And as far as doing the experiments, I mean, you should keep learning things, try something new. I mean, try to do things. If it doesn't work out, if this doesn't work out, then I'll do something else. It didn't work. I'm out 3 geese, 4 ducks, and 5 muscovies for the season that I can still butcher for the meat. Just the livers didn't turn into what I wanted them to. I mean, it's still, it's still fine, but I mean, you try things, figure out. You're never going to find the best way to do things if you never learn and try something new. So we're seeing what we can do, and we're trying to improve upon our processes and improve the way we do things and try to find what's efficient versus what's the best quality and what works.
And okay, and also, what are some of the positive things that you've seen from this upgrade? Because that is you're moving from Washington, that's a rather farm meets to the middle of the country. You're exponentially growing the size of the farm. So what are some of the good things from doing that process that maybe somebody's on a smaller piece of land or they're in a smaller location and they want to upgrade? What are the positives that you've seen from that upgrading process?
Oh, you get a whole lot more options. There's a lot more things you can do on a bigger place. And instead of having to buy all your hay and all your feed and bringing everything in, then you can, like, we cut hay, we make our own hay, and then you take the manure and you recycle it back and spread it back in hay fields after you cut them and fertilize with that, and you get more regenerative. Instead of just trying to bring all your inputs in, you start recycling things. You're always going to have to bring in a little bit here and there depending on what you're doing, but I think it's not everybody needs like almost 40 acres to do. But if you're less than an acre's a little tight. We were able to do a lot with it, and we actually worked out a pretty good system where we actually raised more than half of the meat we ate on less than half an acre. But you're probably going to have a hard time if things really do start to unravel, providing for yourself and your family on less than an acre. So,
yeah. And what are the differences with like the changing? We talked about a bit before. We talked about the weather a bit. The
weather.
How much does that? Yeah.
Yeah, the weather's a lot different. It's not quite as wet, and it definitely gets a lot colder than out in Washington. You get a lot more snow. But
so that's an odd thing. Like, I guess, because of Washington, like you might think it's further north, so you might think it might get colder, but there's other things that go into the weather, how close you are to the bodies of water.
So close to that coast, it hardly ever snows. That Pacific keeps it pretty moderate most of the year. It gets really dry in the summer. You get a lot of fires out there in the summertime. It's so dry. But
I was gonna add too. That's why Oregon is good for wine country, because they talk about all the microclimates there. Because you have stuff by the coast, you have elevation, you have there in I think it's the same parallel actually as Burgundy, the region in France. So like, there's a lot you can do in terms of the climate with that. Yeah.
Have you personally gotten into any of the wines or any brewing or anything like that, or is it just mostly foods and things like this?
Yeah, we have wild grapes that grow in our woods, and my wife's made it's actually pretty good grape wine from the wild grapes.
Okay.
It turned out really good. When we were out in Washington, there's a lot of blackberries out there. She used to make blackberry wine out there. It turned out really good. And I've done a little bit of beer brewing here and there, things like that. And but some hard cider. We got a few apple trees.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's really big where I'm from upstate now. All these cider producers, they have so many varieties now because lot of apples and drier, sweeter. There's a lot you can do.
Yeah. So, and we've got some wild ones out in the fence rows, and we've got some cultivated ones up by the house, and
cool.
They're pretty good.
Yeah.
Cool. So, is there any particular things that you thought of doing for some time when you had the 1.5 acre that now you finally got here and like, yes, I can finally do this now? And it's been very super excited for that, like successfully with those.
The hogs and the cattle. Like, we couldn't do that on that small area where we had neighbors close, but we're able to do the hogs and smoke and cure our own hams and bacons, and then we have the beef. So, and then so we can actually raise our own beef instead of buying it in the store.
Yeah.
And then we raise more than we need, so we sell some to people.
Good stuff.
Cool.
And okay, so before you had the first farm, what were you doing before that? Like, has farming been something that's been in your family? Like, is it something you're commented? What got you into the actual deciding to actually have even that 1.5 acre and now upgrading to this, and maybe in the future getting to even something bigger?
Well, we were in 4-H growing up. We had like 3 acres. We'd raise some hogs and then butcher them out we'd take some of the fair to sell, and then we'd butcher some for our own freezer. And then we had some, once in a while we'd do a cow.
Yeah.
And we were back home visiting actually. And, my mom and dad had some chickens, and they butchered some chickens. And my daughter, she was probably 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And said something about that she didn't like the chickens that were alive. She liked the chickens that were in the store. I explained to her that all the chickens in the store were alive, and I decided right then and there that the kids were too detached from their food. We were going to start raising our own food. We got some rabbits, we got some ducks, we got a couple chickens. After that, eventually we got some goats out there, and we started raising and butchering our own food right there so the kids could learn and see this is where our food comes from. And they understand what it means. But yeah, that was the turning point where I'm like, oh no. So
it was something that you were definitely familiar with, that you saw the value and you passed that on. And I think I can co-sign a bit on that. My parents also grew up in the village in Kenya, in Africa, where in Kenya, of course, in Africa, but they had that. And one thing my mom has done, regardless of where we traveled around, even when we were living in apartments in like Rome, like she would have some planters just with a few vegetables and things like that growing. That's something that's been familiar. And then the times when we were living here in Kenya, she had rabbits or some chicken coops just outside. So from a young age, I was very familiar with seeing, like I'd wake up in the morning, play with the chickens when we finally got here. And then the aunties or people would come over for an event and be like, yeah, you go see the chickens. And it's like, oh, they're actually slaughtering a chicken right there. You're seeing the aunties coming. And it kind of gives you some, it might be jarring, thought to be jarring to some people, but it gives you that reality of this is part that happens. That animal has its life. And then through that life ending, you take in some of that. And even with plants, if you see the seed, the tiny seed that you have, you see that thing grow, you see the light come to it, you see the soil, you water that plant, and then you go and you harvest that plant and you eat from it, eat the fruit. And it gives you more of an appreciation, both of the people that do that and your process in all of this. And even when you're talking about the experiments, like how long does it go for somebody to figure out that this plant is edible and this plant will just kill you dead straight? Right. Or if you do this thing with this animal, that animal is going to die. But if you treat it in this way, it will lead a much happier and healthier life. Those are things that I'm thinking we all benefit from, but so few people actually know how to do those things now. It's something that I think we can learn. It's not rocket science, but it's difficult. But people are more like, hey, we need to study more rocket scientists. Maybe let's just start with people knowing more of how we can actually feed ourselves. If we lost all this information, we don't need rockets as much as we need to be able to actually understand this plant won't kill us. Yeah.
Right. We're I think as a society and as a people, we're getting too detached from the things that actually matter, and everything is getting too mechanized and mechanical and corporate. And I want to try to do as much of our food as we can ourselves, and I want to try to other people as much as I can, try and do high quality, wholesome food for other people as we can.
So what are some things that you think that keeps people away from getting to know more about the farming? What themselves? What are things that you think keep them away? Like that people might dislike about what you do, and that is part of what you do that you might think is still good, but are things that questions or things that you've noted that keep people away from what you do? If that makes any sense, that question. Sorry.
It is hard work. You do, and you're always responsible. So, I mean, we do have things where we go spend time with our parents or my brother's house, and a lot of times we leave early because we got to come home. We got to milk the cows. We have to. I mean, you're kind of tied unless you can find someone else that is willing to and able to take care of it while you are gone. So you're kind of tied to the land when you do this sort of thing. And it is a lot of work. Sometimes it's muddy and messy, and sometimes things don't go well. I mean, sometimes a raccoon will kill 10 of your chickens, and you'll lose that's not happy. I mean, there'll be times when you'll something will bring in a disease, and you'll have to figure out why some of your animals are getting sick and try and things happen, and you got to figure them out. You got to take care of, you're responsible for all these lives that you have there. So you've got to do your best to provide for them and make sure they're in good shape, healthy.
Yeah, that's true. It's a direct thing. It's there's some jobs where I think you're very detached from the end user, or the thing that you're dealing with doesn't really react in certain ways where you can I'm just going to take a couple of days off, or I'm not going to put as much effort in. But I guess you can't really just call in sick as easily as possible with some of these things, because it's actual direct lives that need you to literally feed them or literally keep them away from something that could actually end their life. So that's interesting. What were the actual effects? Like now we're talking about this changing with the life and things like that over the last it's 18 months now that we're going. How long has this thing been going? This pestilence. What were some of the changes that affected your day-to-day operations or your day-to-day life? Was it a lot, or how much did that actually get affected by it?
Early on, where I was working, they shut down for a few weeks, so we actually used that, and we put up a brand new pasture fence and extended our grazing areas. So that did help. That was kind of nice. But day to day, things have been going about the same here. We're trying to build up. My idea originally was I wanted to eventually try to make contact with a restaurant and try to see if I could provide some grass-fed beef, some pastured pork, some pastured chickens, try to provide that. But the way the restaurants are getting hit right now with the lockdowns, and I don't know if that's even going to be an option anytime in the future. I don't know how things are going to go. So right now we're just kind of focusing on building up and selling like sides of beef, sides of pork direct to people, and then butchering for our own use ourselves.
Stephen, this is something that we've talked about several times in the Additional Dish series, specifically about new ways of people getting food. Now that a lot of restaurants and things like that, of course, in the bigger cities are shut down, people are now more into actually cooking for themselves, trying to prepare food for themselves. The food, of course, food shows and food things on YouTube and things like that have increased. Then companies like HelloFresh, where they actually deliver the stuff to you. So with Mark, have you considered doing that kind of, getting in touch or getting involved in that kind of space that's opening up where people actually get things delivered directly to their homes? Like, I don't know what the regulation process or the licensing process would be for all this kind of things.
I'm not sure how that would work, because like when I sell it, I take it down to a licensed butcher shop, and they butcher it and wrap it. And it's usually like a quarter or a half, which is, well, I mean, we're talking like 400 or 500 pounds of beef at a time.
Yeah.
For each customer. I mean, the last cow I took down there was 1,700 pounds.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of meat.
Yeah.
And then have it delivered onesie twosie. I mean, you kind of have to have a deep freeze. And that. As far as like my brothers and stuff, if they want like a duck or a goose or a turkey, we can just take care of that here, and I can deliver that, or a few rabbits. We'll butcher a few rabbits and take them over. But I don't know how deliveries work.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it in a previous discussion, but I know some people upstate who have a raw milk farm, and they deal with this too, where like they can sell like a little bit to their neighbors, but they can't sell it like on a large scale to, restaurants or something. It's like they can either make cheese out of it, or it's like they can sell it in small batches, but it's like they can't ship like gallons and gallons of raw milk, unfortunately. I mean, regulations. So
right. That's my a friend of mine. They do a raw milk dairy.
Oh, cool.
And they deal with that all the time. And I buy some calves off of them from time to time, and then like the bull calves that they can't do anything with because they were only saving the females. So I'll bottle feed them, and then we'll feed them out and butcher them for beef too. So.
Yeah, that is we have like the one-child policy in China and things like that have created a gender imbalance, I think, in the country, where I think now it's like 55% females and then like 45 men, when it's normally, I think the rest of the world is about 51 to 49. And so with the cows, it's a lot bigger. I mean, that's something you don't really think about with the whole like milk thing. So it's probably like 80% are actually cows, and then it's like 20% bulls, right?
Right. Yeah, because you make them steers, you castrate them, and then you because I mean, one bull can do 20, 30 cows. You don't need all of them. So
how early can they tell which bulls are the best for that? Because like you could tell, like some of those bulls, or is it they can tell from the parents of the bull that this kid is going to be good enough for stud? Is it studding even when it's bulls? Is that, or is that only horses?
You can usually tell by the parents and the breeding.
Yeah.
And if it's high quality, and I mean, even after a few months, you can watch how they fill out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've had some that start filling out pretty nice, but they weren't the breeding I wanted to keep.
Okay.
For a bull. I ended up buying a bull from I bought a bull calf from somebody else that I'm actually raising up to replace my current bull. So that way he's not breeding his daughters. So I'll have a fresh bull come in.
Okay.
Cool.
Do they fight each other when you do that? Is there some antagonism? Like, how does that work?
Oh, they probably would if I didn't keep them in separate pastures.
Okay.
Big one would probably kill the small one. I don't want to do that. So I got them separated.
Yeah. And does this happen? Does this kind of the divide happen with other animals like pigs or like? No. From my experience, like I said, the only ones I've seen in farming situations, we normally you have one cock and you won't really have too many other like actual ones, a bunch of hens. But like pigs, goats, is that a common thing that they do actually, of killing most of the males when they're younger?
Yeah, I mean, you don't need very many of them, and I mean they're about half. So a lot of the meat that you eat comes from the male animals, and you keep a lot of the females to reproduce and keep going. Generally, you don't eat any of the females because they're productive.
And also with here, capons are eaten a lot more here than you find them in the States, where it's like that's the castrated male chickens. What is it about the caponization of animals I mean, I think even humans, supposedly, if you like have like a eunuch, there's something that makes you kind of like softer and like larger or something. Like, could you caponize also like geese and ducks to do a different kind of foie gras? Is there any like caponized foie gras, if any either of you know?
I haven't heard of that. It's an interesting idea though.
It is, but I'm not too keen on doing that surgery. Like I've read about it, and then I mean you gotta count ribs and then make an incision, go in and get it out, and it's just while they're alive, and I just that's not something I want to do. Like they said, if you're gonna do it, you should practice on dead roosters first that you're gonna eat later. Try to practice the technique, but it just seems not something I want to do.
I don't know. It might come up more in a future discussion. I don't know anyone who does this, but I don't know if you've ever seen the way caviar is harvested. It's messed up because they cut open the sturgeon while it's alive, because the idea is that the eggs have to be fresh, because the thing is, if you kill the sturgeon, cut it open, the eggs will start to die when the fish dies. So then if you cut open, you get the eggs are not as good. So they have to cut open the fish while it's alive, and the eggs just like drop out and serve them. They've come up, they've come up with another way of doing it where I guess they hook up a vacuum and do that, but like, is that really that much better? Like hooking back, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that is a good thing. This is like with the foie gras, like you said, I like the results of some of these things. When I was looking into how capons are made, I was like, and then because they normally do, sometimes they do it when it's chicks, so they just like, you see these people sorting through these baby chicks, like throwing something to the side, and it's like, I'm like, oh, that is, I mean, I'm glad some people are doing it in some sense, but I'm also really glad, and that's why I'm really excited to have this conversation, because you're actually somebody who's out there doing something. Foie gras is a pretty good food, but that process, I can understand why some people have the apprehensions, and even people in the industry themselves, there's different relations. Some people like certain animals, some people like certain plants, some people deal with certain things, and it's a kind of it's a good thing to kind of hear about.
Mark, do you raise veal at all? Because that's another controversial thing. Because I know they talk about tying up the baby cow so they can't move and all that.
They don't have to be tied up so they don't move. I don't raise veal yet, at least. Strictly because I think for the time and the money I put into them, getting them to grass-fed beef works better for me. I've thought about getting a couple to raise for veal, but as the money I put into them early on, I think feeding them out on grass and getting them even bigger is a better cost benefit. Like I don't have any problem with veal. They don't have to be tied so they can't move. They're in a small area and they're fed milk, which is basically what I do with the ones I get until they're big enough that they can go out into the pasture. Kept in a small area and they're fed milk. It's not cruel or anything like that, but you butcher them before they're grown. Whereas I just kind of take them, I basically raise veal calves and then put them on pasture and then raise them out for beef. So,
yeah,
I mean, I could, but
yeah, it's interesting too, the difference in flavor profiles, grass-fed versus milk-fed veal. I know there was actually a sommelier in the city here at a place I used to go to who would actually change the wine pairing depending on whether the veal was grass-fed or milk-fed. And I thought that's kind of interesting because, you know, we always talk about you are what you consume and how like corn-fed versus grass-fed versus milk-fed, the flavor profile changes and also the fat content. Like our friends who have the raw milk farm, they were saying that grass-fed, it's more omega-3s, corn, it's more omega-6s, and you need some, but omega-3s are better for you. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Yeah.
And also with like the foies and with the ducks and the geese, because it's just like animals. We're all animals, and calories in, calories out. If you burn more calories than you're actually consuming, you're not going to gain the fat. So, how do the animals not move around much, like the ducks and the geese, or what happens with that?
Well, the ones that we just butcher regular, they're free range. They're out and about. They go down. They eat in the woods. They eat in the creek. They go up in the barn at night. The ones that we're actually trying with the foie gras experiment, I've got them in it's probably 6 by 12-foot pen, and they're covered completely so the other ones don't get in, and they're as much as they can eat. They have as like as much as they want. The rest we feed them morning and night, and then they'll eat grass or go eat whatever in the woods, like the acorns and things like that. But these ones,
that's the cool thing about these animals. Like I noticed very early, they just come home. It's almost like they know. There's that homing nature that they have that human beings kind of lost. Like a human animal can get lost relatively easily, but these animals seem to know where home is a lot faster than we do. But yeah, how much? Like you were talking about you said 1,700 pounds for the cow. Like how much grass is that? Like over its life, like around? Just give us like a round range of how many pounds or kilograms of grass does an animal need to eat when you're buying that steak? Like how much conversion is that, if you have any idea?
I have no idea.
So just thinking grass is low on calories too. So like you say, I mean, how much of that? Yeah. Because like there's that whole thing about how they say celery is a negative calorie food because you actually burn more calories chewing it than you ingest. So like you wonder with grass, is it kind of similar? Like how much grass would you have to eat to actually, you know?
That's why you need those multiple stomachs. You're always just like constantly like taking in the food, like processing it, because it's like it's so little in there.
Yeah.
Right. And they ferment it and break it down in the one stomach and then breathe through it and swallow it again. I mean, I have no idea how many pounds of grass it is. They do eat a lot of hay in the winter. But I use rotational grazing. I use a electric line. They'll eat a strip, and then a couple days later, I'll move them to the next strip, and then let what's behind grow back up as I move them across. So I have no idea how many pounds that is. It's a lot. They do eat a lot, but
I was thinking of, this is when I was a lot younger. I was thinking of doing like an organic lawnmower service. You just go to like the suburbs and stuff. You just have like some goats and sheep, and you just have them go around people's houses and just like eat their lawns to the right level. But then I guess you could talk. Like, go ahead.
We actually mow our grass. Maybe, I mean, we cut hay in the big fields, but our actual yard, maybe once or twice a year, just to knock down the big weeds.
Yeah.
We'll bring cows up to the house, and we'll use temporary electric fence, and we'll just put them right there, and we eat it off, and then whatever weeds they didn't like and didn't eat, we'll mow them off with the mower just a couple times a year. But we hardly ever mow grass.
So this could work. It's probably just regulations that are stopping people from doing this. Like we should have organic lawn mowers.
I'm pretty sure if there's regulations, you could probably do it. They fertilize it as they go too.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the recycled process there. Yeah. Okay. So next, what do you think is one of the opposite jobs of what you do? Is something that you think would be, if somebody is doing something that they dislike, switching to this would be on an opposite spectrum, that they might be really into doing this, or something that you would be like, okay, I don't want to do this because you really like what you're doing?
I don't know, maybe office work. I mean, we do try to keep some books on money in, money out, who's been bred what time of year, but I don't really like the bookkeeping as much. So my wife and daughter are actually pretty good at that. So they actually keep. I ask him like, "Hey, when was the last time we bred this cow, or when was this cow bred, and when was this goat bred? Like, when did this pig have babies last?" They got it all written down. They're good at keeping records. So, I mean, you should keep records, but like as far as the opposite, I mean, I couldn't stand just sitting in office all day.
I had said something similar in the food service discussion, because that's a very physical job as well. So like, you work in a kitchen, it's like you're doing physical work all day. I mean, you may have to write things down here and there, but I mean, barely. And the one thing as a chef that was annoying is doing the food cost, because it's like, it gets so detailed, because you look at different cuts of meat and like how much gets trimmed off, if the bones are used or not. Again, how much they cook down, and like how much do you charge, then the markup for different things. Food cost was a pain. Like I was not good at it. I'm not the best with math, but like there's apps you can get now which make it a lot easier, but it was really a pain, because it's just like there's so many little things you have to keep track of, like again, markup, like how much waste, different items, do you want to mark up something a little less to sell more of it? It's like all these little things are just very, very hard.
Yeah, I guess those books are the things that you have to consider. That, because how do you really decide the price of you just go to the slaughterhouse, and then they have the certain price during that season, during that time, per pound of beef? Like, how do they tell which quality of the cow is going to change the price, and how do they figure these things out?
Mostly I kind of look and see what other people are selling for, and kind of try to be right around in that ballpark. I mean, I got some different cows that I'm trying.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be something premium, but we're going to see how it cuts and compares. We're going to do a couple side by side, cook some steaks side by side with different breeds.
Cool.
So that way I can try to upsell it.
Yeah.
But for now, we just kind of go with whatever other people are selling other cows for. But I'm looking forward to the ones I got this year. I got some Highland Jersey cross, and I got some regular Jersey, and I'm gonna cook them steaks side by side and compare the quality and taste difference, and then I might start selling some of them at a little higher price if they're noticeably better, which I think they're gonna be. They looks better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to ask too before sorry. Oh, sorry, you have something to say. So
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to comment. You were talking about Mangalista pork as well, right? I think you and I spoke a little bit on. Yeah. So I was. Did you want to talk about that for a little bit, or just
Yeah, I've got a Mangalista Berkshire cross pigs.
Yep.
And like it doesn't it's not a like white pork like you see. Normally your pork is like light pink to when you cook it, it's kind of a white meat.
Yep.
This is actually like a red, like it looks almost like beef when you cut it.
Oh, wow.
And it's really marbled. And then you know how the fat on pork sometimes feels kind of greasy.
Yeah.
But this almost feels oily. Like I'm not sure if you understand the difference. Like it's like an oily texture. It's more like unsaturated fats in the fat, and it's really got a really good flavor. And I've also got some the the black pigs.
Oh, the Pata Negra, the Spanish ones?
No, they're the American guinea hogs. They're a little smaller.
Okay.
They're a lard type hog, and they're really well marbled. And I've tried crossing some of them in. They're I was trying. I don't know if I'm gonna. I was trying to kind of get the Mangalitsa Berkshire bred down to a smaller size that a small homesteader might like be able to handle more easily.
Yeah.
I was trying to do that on the side while I do the bigger pigs to butcher myself, and I was trying to breed some because the guinea hog pork is really good too.
Mm-hmm.
It's really high quality and it's really well marbled. I'm trying to breed that, cross that, and get so I could try to sell those to other people that wanted to raise pigs for their own homestead that didn't want a full-size pig, but would still get some high-quality pork. But
how long would something like that take? How many litters? Is it litters for pigs? Like when they give birth, they call them litters, or is it something else?
Yeah, litters.
So how many would a sow give in a year? Like how long would it take to actually get that phenotype, that smaller type from a regular size one? Like,
well, so the guinea hogs are already a smaller type, but they're a lard type hog, which Mangalistas are a lard type hog too, but the Berkshire is more of a bacon type, so they're a little longer body. So I'm trying to cross them back and forth, and I mean, I've been working on it. I've got some decent looking ones that are a little bit on the smaller side.
Mm-hmm. Silas, I just sent you a good article from D'Artagnan about Mangalitsa pigs. It's really interesting. They have a very interesting appearance. Maybe we can put a photo up on the screen there. They have this curly, almost like wool, and they said they almost went extinct actually in the last century.
Oh, wow.
But they brought them back, and it's really interesting. It's unusual pig, and like Mark said, they have that redder flesh rather than the white. So it's a very interesting animal. I think it's also old world versus new world meat. So it's probably factors into it as well.
Yeah, that's one thing that you'll notice. A lot of people talk about conservationists and helping animals and things like this. And a lot of people who do this are people who live in suburban areas who have actually been around any non-domesticated animal. But even with the domesticated animals, they should understand like the animals that do the best besides human beings are the animals that humans have relations with, are working together with, coexisting with. Like the animals that are farmed are doing a lot better. Like the average animal on the farm in the United States of America has better access to healthcare than like majority of the human beings alive. So it's like that whole process of understanding that we can have win-win relationships and we can kind of work together and things like they enjoy cats, house cats and dogs, but they don't understand that process of getting a house cat and a dog started with a wolf. And when did cats come from? Domesticated cats? I don't know what animal they came, what initial one, but that process of working together with humans got to these kind of things that we see today that they like. Yeah.
Yep. All right.
So, okay, we think we have. So, okay, misconceptions. This is a good one. What are the misconceptions? Like we talked about that all again. I think it's already a misconception with the way people like live with animals when they actually farming and things like that. What are some misconceptions that you think people have about farming, about actually the things that you do?
I mean, some people think it's easy.
Yeah.
People think it's cruel. I mean, it's definitely not easy. You're not just. I mean, that's a lot of hard work going in, and I mean, our goal is animals get like one bad day. That's every day's good. They get one bad day, and that's their last. I mean, we got to give them the best life possible. It's not cruel. We try to really make sure they're well fed, well taken care of, well protected, and I mean, I like to eat meat. I mean, I don't really like killing the animals, but I mean that's part of life and that's part of what we do, and it's not like that's not the fun part. Like watching the calves and the goat kids in the spring and the little chicks, that's the fun part. But I mean, when it comes down to it, I mean, you got to do what's got to be done, and that's part of life, and that's part of feeding yourself and feeding your family. And not everyone's cut out for it. I mean, it's hard. My daughter, she'll cut meat, no problem. She will not kill.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. Like, she's not my son. He'll stand right beside me and he'll kill chickens same time I am and process them. But my daughter, she'll pluck, she'll do other things, but she's just not everyone's cut out for it. I mean, you have to be able to set things aside and do what needs to be done. And I mean, it's not easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember even in culinary school, this one girl in my class had trouble breaking down soft shell crabs because you actually snip the heads off with scissors, and like some people see that and they're just like, I mean, for me, it's not a huge deal because it's actually a quicker way. Like they say, like with lobsters, for example, you're supposed to kill them knife to the head because if you throw them in the water, the boiling kills them kind of slowly. Whereas the knife to the head, it's just that's it, severs the brain.
Right. Right. The stunning and making sure that it's quick and as painless as possible.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's important. Make sure you do it right and understand what you're doing because you don't want to make them suffer.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I personally have slaughtered chickens, goats, not chicken and chicken and duck myself, but I've seen. I want to see the animals that I eat. Get that to know so I can value and understand the process. I've seen cows being slaughtered. I've seen goats being slaughtered. And when it comes to breaking down the animals, I break down most of the foods that I've eaten, like from seafood to fowl to the hooved animals, because it just gives you better knowledge and awareness of the things. Like you said with your daughter when she was 3, it's like I prefer the chickens or just the ones that are alive. And that's how a lot of people, very big, powerful, successful human beings in this world are able to be in that position without ever seeing like the actual food that fuels them to do all these things. And I think that is a massive disconnect that is rather troubling. And I think it's good that you're talking about that misconception where, at least from my experience, most of the people I've seen, almost all that are involved with farming, have more of a valuation for that food and the animals. It's not just a book of numbers where you can just put it aside or just ones and zeros in a computer. It's an actual life form. You get this sounds like a bit woo spiritual. Like I would like put it on like it's a circle of life like song in there, but there's some truth to that. There's some most definite truth to that aspect of it. Yeah.
Right. It definitely is. You get to. I mean, you take it. You breed the animal. You help it be born. You take care of it. You make sure it's taken care of, like all the way from its first day to its last day, and know where your food came from. You know what it ate, where it was. You know all of that, and you're intimately involved in everything in that animal's day-to-day life, taking care of it, and then when it comes time, it feeds your family, and it's
something you can appreciate. Yeah. Okay. Next question, if you're ready for it. What are some of the courses or classes or other forms of learning that specifically helped you do what you do? And are there any other things that you missed that you thought that you now think that if I had known this earlier, I'd have been better? And you mentioned already with the fact that your parents were already in the farming, involved in farming, so some of that, but what else helped you learn to be as successful as you are now?
Joel Salatin, his books and his talks, I learned a lot from him. He's a very good resource, very bright and very innovative. And then looking at some of the Journey to Forever project.
Yeah.
They document a lot of old knowledge, old farming knowledge, old things, and a lot of stuff from like some of your Asian practices too, like your old school. Like they've preserved and brought a lot of that and put it online where you can read it. And there's just your library, looking at books, reading different guides to farming, guides to livestock. And there's a lot of those resources online as well. I mean, I don't have any formal education in it.
Yeah.
But there's definitely a lot to learn, and there's a lot of good information up there.
Cool.
Yeah, it's education is education. We have a different series with Stephen talking about the ivory tower, and people talk about different things. You experiment with homeschooling. Shouldn't you take it? It's like no. The current schooling system is the experiment, because even most of the world even today doesn't have that whole K through 12, then 4 years plus 2.5 years of crippling debt to like get supposed education. It's like, no, the schooling indoctrination complex is the experiment. Like actually going out there and working and learning from people who can actually do things and pass that knowledge on is the way human beings have been existing. Not even as human beings. I'm sure you see this with the animals that you're raising. They watch their parents, and their parents teach them how to do certain things. You don't have to teach every cow how to like go get the grass or how to deal with certain things. It learns from the other animals that are out there. Yeah.
Right. They see what their parents eat, and then they eat the same things, and they understand and they learn. And
yeah. So we shall leave some of these links. If you think of any other links or any other information that you think was helpful to you, definitely let us know, and we can keep updating the file. You can come back later on and update us with other things that you learned. Are there any quick tips that you could give that you know that, okay, this is something that you just learned recently that you're like, oh man, I can't believe I didn't know this when I was doing the farming in the past?
Make sure you know the nutrient content of your soil. We did run into some problems with some selenium deficiency because our soil doesn't have a whole lot of selenium in it. And once we started supplementing the selenium, we stopped having the problems.
Yeah.
So make sure you understand what is actually in your soil and what minerals are deficient and what's needed.
Okay.
things like that. That's definitely something that I wish I had looked at sooner. And then, I mean, you're just understand you're never going to be perfect out the gate. You're never going to have the best plan. You can always improve on what you're doing, and you can always have something better. So don't be afraid to try something. And I mean, as long as it's not like something inhumane or ridiculous, but I mean, try different styles, different things, and definitely look at the past. Look at things that we did as a people before we became so modernized and detached. I mean, there's reasons we did things the way we did in the past, and we've lost a lot of that. And I think bringing that back is going to help as we go.
Yeah, that is true. That is unfortunate, especially now that you have the access to the internet for so much of this information that farmers in the world today, let alone 100 years later, to get this information, but it's just sitting there, just not being used by all these people who can actually use it. It's an odd situation that we find ourselves in. When you think about some of these things. What kind of soil do you have there? Here, the primary one is like black cotton soil. I don't know if you're familiar with that. And then there's some kind of red. I don't know what the red iron one's like. It's really red, very granular soil here in Nairobi. But when you go to the outskirts, at least the farms that I've seen, it's mostly black cotton, which sucks up water. But I guess the positive thing that sucks up water because it doesn't rain that much. So when it does, you want it to actually store the actual soil, like water.
Well, we've got black. It's a little on the clay side, but I mean, we don't have a whole lot of selenium, like I was saying. Like there's, you definitely need to supplement that. But I mean, it's actually pretty good soil. A garden grows pretty well.
Yeah,
and the grass grows pretty well. And then as we're adding more manure and things as it goes, it just keeps getting better as we work on managing it, improving it as it goes too.
I'm gonna double check because I know like when I've been here when it does rain, when you go out to the farms and you get stuck in the mud, then I recalling seeing the mudding that my friends did when I was in college. When we come back and they were covered in mud that looked exactly the same as the mud that we have here. So it might be a similar type of soil. I'll look into that, and I guess as I said, links below for those kind of things too. Okay, is there any times that you kind of had a situation where you're like, okay, this stuff is really tough that you've seen other people quit or chase them away, that you fought through, that you would suggest that somebody in your position coming across that challenge should also push through to the other side of it?
I'm not sure. I mean, maybe just trying to do it while you're working another full-time job, trying to, there was a time last year I was cutting hay and I was also working 7 days a week. So I was working from 10:30 at night till 7 in the morning, coming home and then cutting hay until about 7 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And then sleeping from like 7 to 9 and then going to work.
Wow.
And got to the point where I was starting to fall asleep on the tractor.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was pretty rough. I don't recommend that.
Yeah.
But, just pushing through, getting things done, what needs done. It's helpful now. The boy and my daughter are a little older, so they can help out a little more when I do need to get to sleep. But
yeah, that's one thing I'm wondering. With that many acres that you have, is it just mostly just you and the family, you and the immediate family working on it, or do you occasionally get hands? I guess when you're harvesting or when you're planting, is there times where you call more people in?
It's just us, my wife and my kids.
Wow.
Okay. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, but
when I broke my leg, my dad did come out and help some. That was really helpful when my leg was broken. But other than that, no, it's pretty much just us.
Wow. Yeah, I think that helps. So there's a difference with that. I'm sure you've seen some of these articles talking about there's a gap in, or there's an issue with like people having more kids or families not being, or people who are single until their older age. But this is, again, it's not just from observation, but even looking at the figures. I've lived in cities in the United States of America and also in rural areas. And my friends in rural areas, most of them my age are married with kids and things like that. Then a lot less in the urban areas won't be that way. And I think there's something that gives you, it's just the same thing we're talking about, being closer to the life, the plants and the food and the animals that we eat, gives you more of a connection. But being closer to that life, that other human life of this is my wife, these are my kids, that is something that I think some people are missing out. And you see that same thing. It's not just the United States of America. Even here in Nairobi, you look at the people that are older, involved with this more modernized type of life. They seem to have certain disconnections with just the condition of being an earthling, just being a life form on Earth. It's these artificial things. They're trying to fill in these basic things of, I have a kid, I can see that life, I have to do this because I value this life. Instead, they're like, okay, video games or a pet or these kind of other things in there where it's like, just have a kid. Have a kid, and these other things will kind of, because even asking you those questions, like asking it, what is something that will stop you from doing this? People, you see the things people quit for. Oh, I'm triggered. Oh, I'm going to leave this. Oh, I can't be at work. Somebody challenged me in this. I can't do this. You can't do that in a farm when it's your family relying on this food. The animals relying on you. You can't just be like, today that cow looked at me weird. I don't like this. I'm gonna leave. You can't do those kind of things.
Right. It doesn't matter. Like they got to eat every day. Just they got to drink every day. You gotta, no matter what, you got to make sure that they're.
Okay. And what made you decide to go with things like, I'm guessing this is in part related to deciding to go into the foie, trying to do this more like humanely raised foie. What made you decide to pick things like grass-fed versus the other ways that people are doing? It seems like a lot of the things that you're doing are more concerned because, as you mentioned, they are people who will have a different level of care for the animals. It's like, it's just the results of it, but you're more interested in the quality of those results being actually achieved.
Right. I want to do high quality, and I want to try as best I can to keep things as closer to natural as I can. I mean, cows aren't meant to eat corn.
Yeah.
If you just take a cow that's been eating grass and give it a whole bunch of corn right away, like it dies. Like it will die. You have to slowly, gradually build them up to corn because the rumen in the cow, one of the stomachs, it has a basic pH when they're eating grass.
Okay.
And then when they eat a bunch of corn, it turns acid. That'll actually kill them if it happens all at once. But if they slowly, gradually, E. coli is a natural bacteria that occurs in cows. They have to have E. coli to digest their food. The E. coli in grass-fed beef, grass-fed cows is only tolerant to live in a basic environment. That means if you somehow do get the E. coli from those cows into the meat, your digestive tract will kill it. So you have to gradually wean them onto corn so that the E. coli in the digestive tract gets used to living in an acid environment, which also means your digestive tract is an acid environment. So that means that E. coli can now infect you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's problems with the way we've been feeding animals, and I just want to try to keep it as high quality and as close to natural as I can get within reason. I'm not just going to turn pigs loose to go wild, but
One thing with E. coli too that's interesting is they say it only lives on the surface of the meat, so that's why, like they say, ground meat, it's often better to cook it all the way through because it gets mixed in. And well, that's one of the concerns now. It used to be that you ground one cow and that was the meat, but now they say, like, because they're mixing all these different cows, like you can have a burger that has like 20 cows in it. So if one of those cows is infected, yeah, that'll mess with you.
It's the whole thing, right? And when I mean, sometimes when I'm making sausage or something, I'll add pork and beef together.
Yeah.
But like, as far as hamburgers and just most of our sausage, it's what we have. This came from one cow, and this came from one pig, and this came like, unless we're blending pork and beef together for a particular recipe, it's one source, one animal when we do it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, you just mentioning that, it's not surprising that happens, but it just, in my mind, just I was just defaulting thinking, like, why would you use multiple different animals? But yeah, it makes sense that people do that. Because that is one thing that, unfortunately, here in Kenya, most of the food that you'll have is grass-fed, most of the animals that you'll have. And I do notice a difference when I get animals in the United States. Just if you just go to like your typical grocery store, supermarket to get it. If you go to a butcher shop and they know the people, that's definitely better and you get better quality food that way. But when you go with all the meat glue and the meat fillers and all these things, and it's a damn shame what people are actually putting into their body after putting into the animals that they're eating to begin with. It's no bueno. You had mentioned something with the soil. Does forgetting the name, there's something with S, if you can remind me, the lack of
selenium.
Yeah. Was that concerned, more so a concern for the plants that you're growing, or is that getting in the grass and then not something that the animals are eating? Like, what was that?
Yeah, it was, we were having some problems with some of the baby goats, and the pregnant goats were having some issues because they weren't getting enough selenium.
Okay.
And then it's not growing. The grass isn't taking it up because it's not in the soil.
Yeah.
So you got to provide it. And we actually lost a couple kids early in the year because we figured out before we figured out what it was.
Yeah.
Then we got the supplement, and then we started having better from there. But yeah, we actually lost a couple young ones before we figured out what exactly was going on and what they were lacking. So
you get it in the soil by putting it in the water that you're using to water the fields, or how does that happen?
No, we provide a free choice mineral for them now that has selenium in it. So they can eat as much as they want. And over time, as they go out in the field, as they're eating it, that'll help.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah,
the soil as they go. But yeah, so eventually we keep providing it free choice as much as they want, as much as they need. So they'll probably eventually start using less as they spread it through the field, doing their business. So that'll help build it up into the soil from there.
See, that's the weird thing. Like, see, the free choice, it's there. The animal's there. The animal can tell that when I ingest this, I might not know it's selenium, I might not know it's coming from this, but they know their body feels better once they do this. Yet we have, like, we're talking about the foie thing. You have to funnel down in most cases to get a goose to be that size. But human beings are willingly, with all this access to supplements and things, not eating as well as they can. The same thing that I've done. I'm a recovering obese person. I understand this is an issue, but we have that. People are saying we're going to be unhealthy, physically choose to be unhealthy, and damn you for trying to tell us that we're not. We're animals. We're all animals, and we know these things inherently. You can have us tell you one thing, but when it comes down to it, health is health. If you look at an animal, you can tell that it's healthy. The animal has the feeling somehow under it, and we just need to get back to this knowledge, get back to this awareness. It's a positive thing. Okay, now the most important question, which again, as I mentioned, this whole thing is just a ploy for me to ask people about this question. Do you like cheese? And if yes, which ones and why, and if no, why you're a horrible person.
Yeah, I like cheese.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of like Limburger. Tried that.
Yeah.
Not
It's
not a
intense.
big fan. I think probably my favorite cheese is halloumi.
Yeah, halloumi is amazing.
She started making that from the
It's
raw
amazing.
milk that we milk here, and then frying that up. Sometimes I like to fry 2 pieces of that, and then put some ham in between and make a sandwich that's like all
wow.
no
Sounds
bread,
amazing.
cheese with meat in between, fried meat or fried peas with meat. That's probably one of the best cheeses. I really like that one.
By the way, Andrea and I went to Casa Lua yesterday. I haven't posted the pics yet, but I have another cheese plate. There's a wine and cheese bar near me. They do these flights of cheese, and it's really cool. And each one gets paired with a different condiment. So it's like smoked ricotta with like graham crackers. There's like smoked what was it, like sweet potato with like a cheddar or something. There's like blue cheese with chocolate and cornflakes. And it's cool because it starts from lightest to heaviest. So it's like you eat in that order, and like that way your palate doesn't get overworked. Yeah, it's really interesting.
We'll have that cheese footage on the screen while we're talking about this. But the halloumi, I found out about halloumi. It was I think 5 years ago, but yeah, it rocketed to the top of my list. And there's a difference with the halloumi because cheese, as most of y'all probably know, it gets melts down and softened and things like that. But halloumi keeps its actual body, keeps its size when you grill it or when you roast it, and you can get the nice crust on it. It's an amazing cheese. Do you use goat milk or the cow milk when you're making it?
Usually the cow milk. We've done the goat milk before, but we get a lot more of the cow milk than we do the goat.
What makes it have that ability to hold its body when other cheeses normally just melt down and break apart when you put them to high heat?
I'm not sure if it's the temperature you do the curd at or what. My wife, she makes all the cheese.
Okay. What other cheese? Tell us about all the cheese.
She makes a lot of mozzarella too.
Nice.
Okay.
She's done some cheddar. Tried Monterey Jack. I mean, she's made a few, but I think the halloumi is probably my favorite. It's
cool.
Really,
it's amazing. If y'all haven't tried it, if anybody listening, guys, gals, and everything else in between, go out, get some halloumi. Stop listening right now, and actually go out and get some halloumi and put it on the grill or put it on the pan or something, so you can have it when you're done with this, because it is an amazing experience. And yeah, it's great, fantastic.
Cool.
How long was you guys just started making cheese when you moved to this farm? You haven't been doing it for even at the smaller farm or?
No, my wife just started the first maybe probably less than a year ago, maybe 8-10 months. And she's getting into it. She's had some batches not turn out. I mean, every time we're learning something new, things happen, but it's been really good and done really well with it.
Yeah, I think there's no I guess Farmers-on. We should start like a Farmers-on. There's no Farmers-on where you can just like send a chicken carcass over the mail. But I think things like cheese might be something where you can package and start doing some kind of like co-op or some kind of environment where people like share different products around. That'd be kind of interesting. Okay, so last question we have here. Is there anything else you'd like to add about this, like the earnings, cost benefit analysis, trade-offs? Different relationships that you make, like how is the farming? Like I don't like how certain people are using the term community because I think it's artificial. But I think with farmers, as you mentioned, there is that knowledge where you move to a new location and they tell you, okay, the soil is like this here, the weather, certain animals won't treat this way. So what's the kind of environment you've experienced making relationships and other things involved with just farming and being in that kind of space?
I mean, it's been really good. I mean, we've got the neighbor across the street. I mean, we've split batches of chickens because it's cheaper if you order more than the smaller amount. And I've got Amish neighbors on the backside, and we I mean, buying and selling some livestock, a lot of the stuff we've gotten, some of it we've gotten other places, but some of our stuff's come from Amish, or like I said, that dairy farm that I'm friends with them. We buy some calves from them, and one of our dairy cows we bought from them. That was an older one that it was getting past its prime productive life, but it's still got some good years left in it. So we bought it, and she's been a good cow still.
Yeah.
She may not be up to commercial standards of production, but she definitely produces enough milk for us. And it's been good. I like it. And like where we're at, and the people that are around us, it's been good.
It seems to be a field where there's not as much like undercutting or, oh, we got to keep the secret away from somebody. If this person is successful, that's taking away from me. It seems to be something where it's like everybody can be successful together. You know, it's like if the farm next to you is doing well, that's not necessarily taking food out of your animal's pockets. Like it's something that, hey, you can learn from those people because maybe there's something that you could share with it together. And I think that's a good kind of space to be in. It's a good place to kind of be in.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's also the results. Also, you can't really like fudge, can't really hide. Like, oh no, my cow is. I have the greatest cows ever. I have like 20 cows. You got like 10 cows that weigh like 500 pounds. It's actually there. There's no lying about what you're actually producing and what the actual results are actually there. So, I think that's a good thing to think of. Sure. What other, okay, so you told us about some of the cheeses, you told us some of the animals that you had. What other products do y'all make, like maybe even see if it's just for yourself that now you don't have to buy these things, or any other things that you haven't mentioned that you actually produce and sell out, if anyone's interested at all,
we've got pawpaws grow in our woods. We eat those.
Oh, really?
We gather ramps in the spring.
I like ramps a lot.
Yeah. We got some mushrooms out in the woods.
I was going to ask you, do you get morel mushrooms in the spring? Those we used to harvest with. Yeah, those are good. I like those a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a half dead apple tree underneath. A bunch of them grow underneath that. That's out in the woods.
Cool.
And then we got the goats, the cows, the pigs, the chickens, the geese, turkeys, ducks. We got the big garden.
At least every of the domesticated ones, the farm ones.
Yeah.
We got the big garden. We grow a lot of. My wife's real big onto tomatoes.
Cool.
Peppers, okra, pumpkins, corn, sweet corn.
Wow.
Cucumbers, make pickles, strawberries. We can a lot of green beans.
Yeah. Nice. That's an entire fresh fruit section in your average store. You just have that there.
Yeah, we try to grow as much as we can ourselves. I got in my shed, I've got through tobacco last year, and I've still got it curing. I'm going to try and grow my own. It's still curing. It's supposed to cure for about a year. But so we'll try.
How long does
that.
it take for the plant to grow?
The plant grows just in the season, but if you're not using like heat to cure it, if you're just letting it cure naturally, like a lot of them, they pump hot air in from like propane and stuff to actually cure it at a certain temperature. But they're saying that you want to go, if you're just going to let it cure naturally in the air, you want to let it go for about a year, make it good. So it's still hanging out in the shed. How that goes.
Cool.
Yeah, we try lots of.
Yeah. You could be using that for cigars or just cigarettes or pipes?
Pipes. usually.
Okay. Good stuff.
I mean,
yeah. So, Stephen, you got anything else? Any other questions?
No, I think we covered a lot of good stuff. I mean, it was really interesting hearing about the farm. Just it was really, really cool to see just how much you're doing between not just livestock, but also milk, cheese, produce, everything. It's really impressive. I mean, you must work very hard at it. I don't know if I could do it, honestly.
Yeah.
I
Do you have any like links to like social? I know like people are more into like the socials and type of thing. I was thinking of doing some kind of system here where you can like this is a weird thing to me. People like I don't know if you've heard of the game Farmville, where it's just like this digital thing that people spend hours of their day while in offices just sitting around doing nothing on this game, growing these digital animals. Like people put dollars, it's like millions of dollars coming in, people spending extra money in order to see some pixels of a pineapple grow on the screen. When I was thinking, there's a way to add the tech together where you could just have people who have farms just do like a thing where like once a day you go to the farm, you take a picture, and somebody who's interested in it can be tracking your process to these things. So are there any kind of more recent things that you've seen of mixing technology, information, and the older ways of farming that you consider positive, that are the good things for the people who might be more interested in farming who aren't at the farms could possibly look into?
Like I said, Joel Salatin, he's a good resource. I'm sure there's other people that have blogs and things like that. There's probably Gene Logston. He's actually from this area, like a little bit north of here. He died a few years ago, but he was a really good author and small farmer, and he's actually another one that was a real big influence reading some of his books and how he does things. And he's actually got a blog online that it's his family estate still maintains it, and they repost older ones as things come around. But there's a lot of good information, a lot of good writing there too.
Have you considered putting those things out there?
We've talked about doing a blog or something like that. My wife is a very good photographer, like amateur photographer. She takes some really good pictures. We were talking about doing it as soon as we figure out a name for this farm, but we still haven't got to that point. So once we figure out a name and some sort of marketing, that's when we'll probably make a blog and start documenting. Like she's already got pictures on like her Facebook, and she posts them and shares them with family. But we'll start kind of figuring that out from there once we kind of get more built up and established.
Yeah, if you don't mind sharing some of those with us, so I could put them up on the screen sometime during this conversation. But definitely with this project, this idea, and thank you very much for coming in and having this conversation with us. It's my intention, as I said, is just sharing information, putting things out, and I want it to be a full-on community type of thing where now that you've been on there, you could have your wife on, you could have somebody else that you know on, even if it's not related to farming, whatever, with this same kind of questionnaire. And we just have these connected kind of environment of people who know each other. Like, okay, my friend, like I was saying, get her some halloumi, but maybe some produce you can come. She lives like in Hopedale, which is close by, but she's lactose intolerant and some things. But regardless, it kind of a thing where it's like maybe later on there'll be a time where she does design, I do design, where it's like, okay, you two come together, you create the website, then you come back on and we talk about like the website together. But just these kind of things where this is already a platform, you're part of this group, and thank you very much for sharing what you told us. But this is already a platform that whichever platform we have, we want to keep updating and keep the people who are part of this I Know Great People series. So any images and any other content that y'all want out, people who are listening, if you have any kind of ideas or questions that you want, I think you might be willing to field some of them. We don't know if you won't have the time to have all of them, as you've talked about. He's very busy with what he's doing. But anybody else who's been inspired or seen some things in here, I think it's a platform that we'll start with this this is the seeds as you've seen with the farming and things can grow. We plan on doing this for a long time, and definitely want you to come back on to update us on the foie and many other things, even non-farming related, as I mentioned. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedule.
All right, so just to finish up now, this is completely towards the end of it. We're concluding right here. These last 3 questions haven't been built up as much. They will get built up more once we have more people on this. And the first one is, do you have any questions for us about the things that we've talked about? It might be related to what we've talked about, or anything else, or just any other questions?
No, not really. Not that I can think of yet.
Okay. Yeah. If you think of any and you think of them later on, let us know. Now, do you have any questions for other people that might read this questionnaire, or people who are listening to us, like the guys, gals, and everything else in between? Do you have any questions for them?
No, sorry.
It's all right.
It's okay. You don't have to have the questions. I think some things out there, I think one thing that would be good, this is the research that I do, just thinking, my background is more like graphic design, animation, kind of things like that. I know y'all have probably done some research and you've seen other people in the market, but for the people out there who are interested in the things that Mark has told us about, if he was going to create a website, create a kind of a more social media presence or a blog, what are some of the questions that y'all would want to be more interested about, the things that we've talked about? Because we might be able to pass those on to Mark, then he can actually consider those when eventually time that he has a site up, and he can also answer some of those questions and just work together with the people out there. I think that can be a positive thing. And then the last question, this is one that we don't have yet, is just like a random requested question. Now here in this situation, Mark, if you think of any other questions for anyone who might be doing this questionnaire later on, you can let us know. Let's say you had a question for somebody who's farming here in Kenya. Some skipping issues here. And if we have anyone who's farming here in Kenya, when we ask them that question when we ask them this question of, do you want to take a random requested question, I'd say, okay, Mark had a question for somebody in this field, and then I'd be able to present your question here. And then with the whole network, like, okay, then from this question, you can have Mark. And then even maybe later on, depending how it is, you could have the two of you could get on. And that's kind of just how we're thinking of eventually growing this into a bigger kind of project. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. So that's it for me. I've enjoyed this so far. I think Mark will be on for later on. We'll try to get him back on. We'll try to squeeze some time in there, but it was really thankful for him to take the time to do this, to be one of the first people we're having on this show, on this project, because it's something that I've thought of doing for a long time, and I'm super excited to be doing this, and very, very appreciative. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, thanks again, Mark. It's been a great talk. Hopefully we'll do it again.
All right. Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it. It was good talking to you.
All right, I'm going to stop recording, but Mark, stay on for just some goodbyes after.